Have a quorum now because I see representatives from all groups here. Right, even Management Association is here. Thank you, Mr. Joe Putner. All right. Public comment on non-agenda items. Members of the public? Okay, no. All right, okay. Review and approval of meeting notes. You all got the meeting notes? Okay. Any questions, any changes?
Nope, no changes.
No changes? Everybody's happy, satisfied? Okay. Are we okay with the minutes? Okay. All right, so we will go. We will memorialize those minutes, meeting notes rather, right? Information item, Superintendent President's update. As you know, hiring is going in full swing. We're doing, it looks like we're doing very well. And I know that several areas have already completed their interviews, and HR and the committee chairs are verifying or checking references, and I will start interviewing next week, I believe, right? So we have also, as far as the administrators level position are concerned, I think we have completed several, not completed, but we're going to be moving to the second level for the chief of police. The vice president of HR position closed already. The committee has met, and I think interviews are being scheduled. The vice president for instruction, it closes, I believe, in 3 weeks now, 2 weeks?
No, it's closed, they're screening.
For vice president for instruction? Okay,
They're screening.
They're screening for that right now. The vice president for student services will close in 2.5 weeks?
Soon, yes.
Soon, right? The assistant superintendent vice president for business and administrative services will close in 4.5 weeks?
Yep.
Right, so a lot of positions are going ahead, and the deans, I know that all those positions closed already.
And they're all screening.
They're all screening, right, and I know many of you are on hiring committees, so I think, well, we'll have a lot of work in front of us, and we will be doing a lot of interviewing, and you know, all of you know, so how much work it is, and this is very serious work for all of us, and I thank all of you who are participating in that process. We have identified, you know, the commencement speaker, and her name is Paula Madison, and I think I did mention that to you before, right? Or I did not? At the board, right? But for those of you here who haven't heard, you may have read about already in the Courier, right? So, no? You,
No, just your pronunciation of the couriers.
how do you say that?
It's endearing.
Huh?
Courier.
Flamboyant.
How do you say the word? How do you say it?
I don't know. I say courier, but
Courier,
that's my
alright.
bad
Courier.
American.
I like
Courier,
it.
all right.
But we liked your way a lot better.
It
what
is.
you're
That's
saying.
when your way is much better.
Fancy.
No, you kind of mistake me. I don't even speak
no.
English now. All right, okay. All right.
Langue
Okay.
française.
Okay, so you may have read about her in the Courier. All right. Okay. And
The award winning.
that is true. That is very true. Yes, that newspaper, the Courier, just won a lot of awards, right? Including on-the-spot editorial, right? Now you told them.
I told them what?
You taught the students who took part in that, right? Who write in the newspapers.
No, had been with forensics.
Forensics.
Oh,
I was the forensics,
okay,
not the
very
journalist.
good. This coming Saturday, there is the honors presentation at UC Irvine, and I know that 2 or 3 of our administrators will be present there, right? And it's a very important day for community colleges, because most community colleges that have honors programs will be there with their students making presentations. It gives the students an opportunity to present in front of their peers, and very often also in front of faculty and staff of other colleges. Everything seems to be in place for commencement, and the commencement committee is meeting, and we do believe that It's going to be a beautiful day, but in case it is not a beautiful day, in case it starts raining, we do have a plan B. And we will make sure that we do not cancel commencement. It takes place on that specific day, and we have a plan B for the gymnasium. All right. This will conclude my report. Academic affairs update.
Hello. We have a technical visit today with John Freitas of the Academic Senate, State Academic Senate, and Lori Bennett. It's at 1:30 to 4 in CA
210.
210. I knew that was wrong. 210. We're hoping that we get a large turnout of faculty. It's a good opportunity to have people ask a number of questions and talk about the units to hours
What did you
issue.
say it was CA?
CA, Center for the Arts. Center for the
Oh,
Arts.
Center for the Arts, okay.
Yes. And there's lunch for people who are going.
So you want us there?
Yes.
There's
I know
1
that
to
Janice
3, right?
Dwyer's done a
It's 1 to 3.
flyer.
1 to 3.
1:30 to 4.
Oh, 1:30 to 4, okay. 1
We're-
o'clock is lunch.
Well, yeah, and we're trying to give people a break between the
Oh, so you don't want
the
to give
board
them lunch
meeting.
or what? Are you giving them or you're not giving them?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But we
That's
were
at
trying
1
to give them time after
Oh,
the meeting with
okay.
the board, so that
Alright.
people weren't having to rush from one thing to the next.
Okay.
As Dr. Verdian said, we're busily hiring people, and I just would like to thank the faculty, because I know that they're spending hours and hours and hours and hours going through hundreds of applications. It's a very long process, and the deans too, are just, it's a huge amount of work.
We want to thank the school for letting us do it at home.
Yep.
There's no way we could have done it with the amount we have.
It was just
It's
not.
rather new for us. to-
I'm glad you
Very
like
good.
it. I'm glad you guys, I mean.
It's a completely, much better,
Mhm.
much,
Yeah,
much.
good, I'm glad.
Well, thank you. I'm happy that we thank HR for getting that process in place. Thank you.
And we're doing our best to ensure that we are looking for culturally competent faculty, administrators, and we spend a lot of time training and talking about it, and it's important to us. We're doing a lot of evaluations also, and again, so many faculty have stepped up to do adjunct evaluations, and we're grateful for that so that we can get them up to date. The fall schedule is due on March 28th, so that's coming along. And we're looking for a big fall because we want to be sure that once we have winter in place, that we're going to meet our targets, because we will be competing with schools now who also have a winter. And we, prior to this, we could start our spring semester earlier, and we're not quite sure how much of an advantage that gave us or what the impact will be when we have winter back. In terms of accreditation, the ACCJC annual report is due on March 31st. I finished it yesterday, and it was looking reasonable. We were able to report 92% participation with SLOs, so that'll be a giant improvement, and I would imagine that would take us off of enhanced monitoring. The follow-up report got through P&P after 3 long meetings in about 6 hours. We've made many modifications to it. There's a track changed version on the website right now if anybody wants to see where it stands currently. Lenore and I will be at the Senate on Monday to go over recommendations 1 through 4. And also, now that the follow-up report is done, we're starting to look at the AIPs. Those are the actionable improvement plans. We've had over 40 of them in the report. Most of them are connected to one of the recommendations, but some of them are not. So we need to get everybody involved in those. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, you covered both of them, so.
Oh, sorry. Were they separate?
Accreditation update. So-
Okay. Well, no, they're both done.
You did that's what I'm saying, you covered
Okay.
both of them, right? Dr. Olivo, student affairs update.
Hi, everyone. Last time I gave you all an update on the graduation initiative. We had banners out. We sent out emails to all students who had completed 45 or more units to encourage them to please submit their records so we could review to see what they're eligible to receive. And we've been working with a local company out of Arcadia, and they created a video in this new format. We're going to have our student peer mentors out in the quad helping students see the value of participating.
You're close. Closer than you've ever been before.
And the time it takes you to watch this,
I'm getting priority registration.
Wow.
I'm finishing my classes.
The most
getting a
expensive
job.
greeting card ever.
I'm
Right
transferring.
there.
They totally cut us
So
a
what are you
deal.
waiting for?
PCC complete gets you closer.
To see if you qualify, check out this website or talk to a counselor today.
So it's another way, it's a tool to try and get students to understand the value of participating in graduation initiative, to let us know ahead of time. That way we can make sure they're on track to graduation. So in the fall, we'll blanket the quad and the campus with our peer mentors. And I'm hoping that all the divisions will work with us so that we can have a success center in each area with the peer mentors and academic coaches alongside your tutors, so that we can help our students finish. At this point, we have around 6,000 students who've completed 45 or more units. And so we want to help make sure that they can transfer or get a job, whatever it is their goal is. And speaking of jobs, we have our career panels this week and next week. And then we have our job fair. So the job fair will be right here on the quad. We have over 50 to 60 employers coming. So I would appreciate it if you could let students know to please come and speak to these prospective employers so that they can get a leg up on getting a summer job or finding employment post-graduation. So what we did is I asked the Career Center to work with admissions and records to get the list of graduates for this May commencement, and we specifically invited them to come speak to the employers. So we're intentional about helping students connect to their post-graduation employment. Other than that, I mean, we're doing lots of work related to ending this year and planning for the fall, such as finishing recruiting our freshmen to participate in first-year experience program pathways, and gearing up for dual enrollment in the fall for our high school students who are participating in our dual enrollment courses. This year we had 498 9th through 12th graders enrolled in college classes. That was a great partnership with the academic side of the house. So we're doing a lot of good work to help our students improve their lives and reach their goals.
Cynthia, what was the number again that you cited? Was it 4,500 students who are on the cusp of?
No, 6,000.
6,000, and what was the?
45 or more units.
45 or more units, okay, sorry.
Okay.
Can I add one thing about that?
Yes, go ahead.
Cynthia's right in regards to the success centers. Instruction has been working with student affairs to look at, and now COVA's involved, and Leslie and I, in trying to turn some of our tutoring centers into success centers with coaches and counselors and using equity money. And we did discuss it at the equity committee yesterday. So that's where.
So we're going to have a name change.
More than a name change. We're going to have
Function.
a function change and train tutors in different ways, and we're looking at piloting that in the fall.
Thank you. Standing committee updates, we'll be bringing at least one or two committees every meeting to hear a little bit of what they're doing. District Technology, formerly known as the Academic Computing and Technology. Mr. Cameron.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I just brought some copies, if we can pass them out, but I'll make it.
Pass them out or not?
Yeah, please.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you. Provide a really brief update. We can keep it under 5 minutes. The District Technology Committee is working to develop Pasadena City College's Technology Master Plan. So we've been working on that over the last year or so, but really aggressively over the last 2 months. You may have noticed a technology survey has gone out. We've put it out to about 2,600 people, and we've received over 200 responses so far. We're going to close out that survey next week with one last reminder for the folks that haven't. So if you can also nudge your constituent groups and ask them to participate. It'll really help, because the more feedback we get, the better the plan can be. The plan that we're working on right now is gonna be a 4-year plan. Technology changes so quickly. Most technology master plans are 3 to 5 years, so we're gonna do a 4-year plan from 2016 to 2020. The plan that is being worked on right now, we've got about 50 pages in the draft already. So there's a lot of things that we already know about the college and what we need as far as technology. So we've got a healthy draft going already. And I hope we can share that with the constituent groups next month, at least the exec groups, and start from there. Some of the focus areas are technology governance. We have some fragmentation as far as how technology comes to be and how it's vetted. So we want to make a recommendation in unifying how technology is added or changed at the college. We also want to identify areas for training and support. Technology is very helpful, but we can really leverage the value if we're trained to use it effectively. So training and support are going to be important pieces of that. Additionally, we have a lot of technology on campus. We want to make sure that it's kept current, so a comprehensive technology refresh strategy is going to be part of this plan. Additionally, we're going to recommend processes for expansion. We're lucky enough to be at a college where we have a lot of computer labs. It really enriches the environment for our students. We want to establish processes for expansion, such as a new computer lab. How do I request a new computer lab? How is it vetted? And how do we know that that is where we want to put our resources? So processes for expansion are going to be important. Finally, another area is we have a lot of processes out there that are using paper, and that's an area that technology can certainly help with. It goes towards our sustainability efforts in reducing paper. It can benefit our facilities plan. If we've got rooms full of file cabinets, we could digitize those and make better use of our space. And finally, paper processes tend to be slower than electronic processes, so there's a lot of efficiencies to be gained. The rest of the handout that I just passed out is a somewhat brief outline of what the draft looks like right now. Keep in mind we're up to about 50 pages, so there's a lot more content to this, but it's a brief summary of what we have.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. You have any questions for Matt? Yes, go ahead,
This is
Stephanie.
great, thank you. I have a quick question. When we were writing the self-evaluation, one of the things that was challenging was to answer the substandards that talk about total cost of ownership. And I don't know if it's appropriate necessarily to go in this, but it would be great if there was a way to, when you're talking about the accreditation standards or the sustainability section, if we could somehow be a little bit more clear about how we calculate our total cost of ownership in terms of technology resources. That'd be great.
We'll definitely include that. One of the things I mentioned as far as adding new labs, that's exactly what we want to add. We're going to include the construction cost of adding a lab, but that also impacts our ongoing refresh, because every year we're putting about $600,000 or $700,000 towards refreshing existing equipment, and certainly computer labs need classified staff to support them. So we need to calculate the impact to the staffing needs when we increase the size of the environment. So that's an excellent point.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Julie?
I'm a little concerned that we have a survey with 200 responses that is not in this document, or a 50-page document that's already created without the stakeholders' contribution. I want to know where the stakeholder contribution is going to evidence itself.
The actual survey results will be part of the master plan. We're going to go through the survey once it closes next week. We've already gone through it once, but we're going to go through it and make sure that everything that comes out of that survey is reflected in the master plan. We want to make progress on producing the plan, so we did not want to wait to start on the draft, but we will not finish the draft without fully consulting the survey. Yeah.
And then the draft itself will be vetted by all the constituent groups as well, right? So there'll be
Absolutely.
plenty of time for input at that point.
Absolutely. Anything missed on the survey, we definitely want to cast as wide of a net as possible and get feedback from all constituent groups.
Dr. Miller?
So from the accreditation point of view, Dr. Scott, Dr. Verdian, is this something that, and even Stephanie and others, is this something that we'd want to make sure we get done in time for the visiting team? It wasn't really called out in the recommendations, and do we get brownie points for pointing it out that we're doing it, or is it just
No.
something that we just do? In other words,
Well-
there's no real connection, is there?
There is no connection, I don't think there is.
Yeah.
Well, except that doing a technology master plan is one of the AIPs.
That's right.
But that won't go
Oh,
in
that's
until the
yes.
midterm
Then in that
report.
case, will be good, we could show we've accomplished one of them.
They're not gonna ask us about that right now, so.
No, but they did ask in a meeting I was in, they did ask us about the status of the technology master plan in terms of how it relates to the education master plan and because all of the planning documents are part of that integrated planning cycle. So I do think it would actually be great for us to show do I think that they're gonna say we haven't met the recommendation because this isn't 100, no.
But it's further evidence that we're on the right track.
Yeah.
You know, it's a warm and fuzzy, if nothing else.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Other questions for Matt? But I have one question for you, Matt. You talk about sustained expansion, new computer lab is one. Do we have data telling us about the computer lab usage currently? How many students use the computer labs that we have by location? Because I know I walk on this campus, I see a lot of computer labs. Do we have computer lab usage by specific location? Daily usage, time of day usage?
We have data across different systems. So we have a system called CI Track that we use in some of our tutoring centers that provides usage of how many people go into those spaces.
You're talking about tutoring lab, I'm talking about computer labs.
Correct. So if we're talking about a computer lab that's a classroom, we also have data from scheduling that tells us how often those rooms are used.
As a classroom or as a computer lab?
If the space is being used, it's
Associated with a class that has that.
neat.
Because we have to be very careful, because if we say that we're going to be adding new computer labs, are we going to be taking away classrooms and convert existing classrooms into computer labs? If we don't know how well our computer labs are being used right now for the purpose for which they were identified.
And that's really the point we want to cover in the master plan, to establish processes that ask those questions effectively using data. Do we need to add a new lab, or can we use existing facilities and be flexible with scheduling? So that it's really the processes that we want to identify.
Matt, I think this is really great. I'm at email capacity right now, so I hope that you all look at the rules of giving us more space for our email.
One of the recommendations is email not be hosted on site anymore. A lot of colleges have moved to Office 365, and that's hosted by Microsoft, and that'll give us bigger mailboxes, and it slowly gets Pasadena City College small steps out of the IT infrastructure business and more focused on students.
And then I was just gonna say, Julie and Val, I mean, when we went with Dr. Verdian to the Houston conference, is it Houston? Yeah. Julie brought up a good point that students need access to a 24-hour lab, or a lab that's open after Starbucks and the library closes, so they can get access to free Wi-Fi. And would this be the committee we would go to ask about using an existing lab, like in the W building, to stay open afterwards, after 10 o'clock?
It would be the committee where a recommendation like that would come out of. And that's one of the, again, technology governance once it becomes healthier, more people will know where to go to provide feedback for requests like that.
Okay.
And let me just tack onto that, the further implications of security, access, those types of things, 24/7, and the additional costs associated with that. And the W building may not be the best location
Right,
because of
right.
the homeless situation up in that part of the campus and 2 o'clock in the morning and that kind of stuff. So it's more than just a technology issue, it's got other business services implications as well.
Will that be part of the total cost of ownership of our technology system?
Yeah, hours of operation would impact that.
Okay. Thank you.
I gotta speak after that. There's an equity issue with giving our students who don't have 24-hour-a-day internet access.
And there's
We've
student
got-
equity money to support that.
Yes.
We've gone to, we've
Yes,
gone
we
to
can pay for
online
it.
textbooks,
We can
we've
pay for
gone
it.
to low-stakes online testing. That's all great, but if our students don't have online access at home, we need to do that here. If we're
Right.
really gonna talk about equity, and if we're gonna talk about beyond financial aid. That's our mission, it's not just safety and security, we can figure that out. We need to do that work in order to do what we're here to do. We've gotta do
And
this.
it could be an equity funded.
I don't argue with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Other questions for Mr. Matt Cameron? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. Great
Excellent,
job.
thank you.
Very good.
Well, then you set the bar very high for your, for the Budget and Resource Allocation Committee. And who will be giving us that presentation?
I will be doing it.
All right, Mr. Joe Simonesci.
So I actually did not bring enough copies, so if you'd like a copy of the PowerPoint, I can
Okay.
email it to you, but it is also on the BRAC website. This was information that was presented to BRAC in January, and nothing has changed since January. The information is from the initial governor's proposed budget. In or about April, the state legislature education committees have meetings. They meet with the chancellor's office, they get feedback from the chancellor's office. Chancellor's office expresses the needs and the desires of the individual districts related to the upcoming budget. And then in May, the governor releases his final budget. So again, this is based on January's numbers. It may look a little skewed, but this is where we are as of today. So I'm going to ask you to go to page 3, and we're just going to give you a breakdown of the anticipated new revenue. So the enrollment growth and apportionment, statewide recommendation is 2%. What that means for PCC is the potential to grab another $1.9 million. The cost of living allowance had dropped from about 2% down to 0.47, so half of 1%, and that equates to about $527,000 for us. So ongoing new unrestricted revenue. Unrestricted means that we can use it for whatever we want. That's about $2.5 million. Proposition 30, everybody knows what that is, the EPA Educational Protection Act account. That is, there are 2 components to it. One is sales tax and the other one is personal income tax.
People earning $250.
Right, people earning $250 or more have the personal income tax component of the EPA taken out of their wages. A portion of that tax, the personal income tax, is supposed to go away December of 2016, and that is about 20%. And what that equates to us is a loss of about $1.8 million out of that new revenue of $2.5 million. So we basically have a new revenue source or additional allocations of revenue of only $650,000, and not even $650,000, but $650,000. Unrestricted funds, these are dollars that come in. They may be categorical dollars or grant dollars. They're restricted. We cannot use them for whatever we want. They can only be used for the purpose that they are given to us. That is about $1.4 million. So 1.4 and the 640,000, we have estimated about $2 million of new revenue coming in next year. Again, only about 650,000 of dollars that we can use for whatever we want. On page 4, These are funds that are also restricted, but they're specific. We have the Economic and Workforce Development Career Technical Education Pathways, SB 1070. There's approximately $4.5 million that should be coming into PCC. Basic Skills, another $500,000. And then categorical programs for EOPNS, DSPS, CalWORKS, and the Child Credit Tax, and that's only about $23,000. So restricted ongoing dollars, about $5 million. Restricted one-time funds, these are dollars that come in for specific use that can only be used for the purpose that they are being given to us. So we are anticipating about $5.1 million for deferred maintenance and instructional equipment. The college has about $140 million worth of deferred maintenance. $168 million for deferred maintenance. That's the upgrading of buildings, making things run more efficiently, those types of projects. And then Proposition 39, there's about $810,000 that will be coming in for energy efficiency. So in total, restricted revenues, about $11 million. So between the unrestricted and the restricted, just under $13 million coming into the district as of the January release of the governor's budget. On page 5, these are the anticipated expenses that the college will have as of today, starting July 1st. So we have 50 new faculty. That is a cost of about $3 million, and that reflects a savings in the adjunct dollars that we currently spend. So the adjunct dollars that we currently spend will be reduced because we will have 50 new faculty teaching many of those sections. The CalSTRS increase, the academic retirement plan will go from 10.73% in the current fiscal year to 12.58%, which is a reflection of almost $1 million of an increase in expense for us. The CalPERS retirement plan will go from 11.85 to 13.05, and that's an increase of about $325,000 of new expenses for the district. We have what we call step and column increases. So as somebody hits their anniversary or they get new educational credentials, they're able to move on the salary schedule, and we are projecting that that will be about a $750,000 increase in expense. The Affordable Care Act, we're setting aside about $150,000. There's a review that goes through Human Resources, and there's a formula that they use that determines whether or not a person who is a non-permanent employee, if they meet those criteria, have the opportunity to enroll into our medical program. It actually is not as much as we had thought it would be this year, so we're setting aside about $150,000 for those increased expenses. And then we have reserves for healthcare increases. So the district's benefits committee has done a number of things to try to reduce the potential cost or increase in expense for all of our medical benefits. And they've been incredibly successful. They've done some program design changes. They have become much more realistic when it comes to the use of the services that are provided through our healthcare coverage, but we are still anticipating up to another $2 million in increases for healthcare benefits. $225 million in dental increases, and about $40,000 in vision increases. And again, these numbers are based on what we knew back in January. These things will shake out a bit as we get closer to July 1st, and we'll provide updates as we go. But for fiscal year 15-16, the one-time dollars that we're getting that are considered mandate dollars, we will set aside, or we're recommending to set aside $1 million for step and column. We're setting aside $675,000 for retroactive payments, healthcare. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. In the current fiscal year budget for 15-16, we had a gap in our budget, and we were not able to balance that gap, to balance the budget. So we had to use, in the current year budget, $2.8 million of one-time dollars to meet that gap. Those dollars will not be here in next year's budget, but those gaps are ongoing expenses. So in total, we have about $2.8 million that we need to find in ongoing dollars to fix that problem next year. So this year we fixed it by setting aside $1 million in step and column, $675,000 for retroactive payments, $500,000 for the Affordable Care Act costs. No, I'm sorry, $400,000, $500,000 for the adjunct office hours that were negotiated, and then we set aside $225,000 for unforeseen needs. So if we had somebody who had an ADA need for equipment, who was visually impaired, we were able to purchase that equipment for that employee or student. In 16-17, we do anticipate about a $1.3 million in savings. The colleges had, I think, 5 supplemental early retirement programs, and each program is paid over the course of 5 years. The first one we offered cost the district about $1.25 million. That $1.25 million will be coming back into the budget so we can use it for ongoing costs. Does that make sense? Okay, good. On page 6, we have the difference of revenues versus the expense. And what we did based on the information that we had in January was the best case scenario and the worst case scenario. And because we still don't know what dollars will be placed where in the budget, our worst case scenario shows that we have a $9 million deficit next year that we need to fund and fix. The best case scenario is that we have a $2.6 million deficit that we need to fix. And the difference here is that there is still not language that will determine how the dollars that are coming into the district that are one-time dollars or restricted dollars will actually be allocated in the final budget in late May, early June. So as an example, we have the economic workforce development bucket of money that's coming in that's restricted of $4.7 million. The state, between the state legislator and the governor's office, may be able to take some of that money from the state bucket and move it into ongoing appropriation for districts. If that's the case, then we'll be able to use that money for ongoing expenses. We will not have to use it specifically for CTE programs. Does that make sense? Dr. Reedy?
No, this
No,
makes
you're
sense,
good?
yeah.
Okay. And then the same thing with the deferred maintenance and instructional equipment. If the state, when they release their final budget, says that they're not going to give the system as a whole the total bucket of $100 million, it's going to be $50 million, and they're going to use that other $50 million for other ongoing cost needs, then we can shift those dollars around to meet the needs of the district. So again, worst case scenario at this point, $9 million, a $9 million problem next year versus a $2.6 million problem next year. Okay? Any questions about that? No? Okay. On the next page, page 7, we have been told that we will be getting state-mandated one-time funds. These are dollars that the state has owed us over the last few years that they have not been able to pay us because of the economic downturn. They're making good on all those dollars now coming in, but they're not ongoing. They're one-time, so we as a district have to make a determination of what those dollars can be used for one-time costs. So if we have a piece of equipment that we need, it's a one-time cost, then that's what those dollars should be used for. So right now, the recommendation is to put aside, out of the $1.4 million, $350,000 for our general reserves, set aside $350,000 for those CalSTRS and CalPERS increases, $250,000 for the workers' compensation fund, $300,000 for the OPEB fund or other post-employment funds, $75,000 for our capital service fund, and $43,000 for our dental coverage fund. So even though our funds like workers' compensation, our OPEB fund, our capital service fund, and our dental coverage fund are well funded, we are not funded at 100%. So a little at a time, we want to set those dollars aside to make sure that any future obligation that we have, we'll be able to meet. Yes, Julie?
Does this best case $2.6 million deficit include the $2 million anticipated increase in medical, which we won't know about until June?
It does.
Okay.
Yes.
So if we took this 1.4 and put it on the 2.6, we'd only be at 1.2, and if healthcare doesn't crash, we could be okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the anticipated increase for healthcare, we said would be about $2 million.
Right.
We use the average of 15% of an increase, which we know is too high. When the actual policy comes back to us in May, if we have a 0% increase, then that 2% can go towards this deficit of 2.6, and then the district only has to find $600,000 to fill a hole. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, page 8. Some of the things that we need to look at if we do have a deficit when the final budget is released and we cannot balance the budget, we need to look internally at a number of different areas to make sure that we can fill that hole. So what we need to have a conversation about is significantly reducing the expenditures for college assistants, reduce stipends, health care program design changes, and that's already taking, that conversation is taking place. Continued FTES to expense efficiencies, so making sure that classrooms are filled to capacity before we launch another section. Implement freeze of services and supplies and other purchases, possible hiring freeze, reduce travel and professional development costs, and any other things that we did not think of that we need to have a conversation about. And then finally, just as an added piece of information, we went back and we looked at all of the instructional equipment dollars that have been received by the state to show that we've actually been doing really well replacing our needs when it comes to the equipment in the classrooms. So in fiscal year 13-14, the district got about $500,000, and we spent about half of that on facilities deferred maintenance and half of it on instructional and administrative technology equipment. In 14-15, we received $2.9 million, and we spent $1.7 million on facilities and $1.6 million on instructional and administrative technology equipment. There's an asterisk there because the district actually had extra funds in our general unrestricted budget, and there was a greater need for replacement of old equipment in the classroom. So we took unrestricted dollars, put it in this line of the budget to help support the replacement of that equipment. In this current fiscal year, we received $2.9 million for instructional and deferred maintenance, instructional equipment and deferred maintenance. We put aside just under $2 million for facilities deferred maintenance. That goes towards that $168 million need we have, and $935,000 for instructional and administrative technology equipment.
Two questions.
Yes.
It's a May revised date, correct, on the
Correct.
budget? Second one is, how many individuals, if you happen to know, are affected by that ACA issue?
I think, Julie, it's maybe a dozen at the most.
No, there's about 50-something that have qualified now, but not all of them have enrolled because they have other insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's about, I don't know off the top of my head, I think it's between 15 and 20-something that have actually.
20, around 20 or so.
Yeah, that have actually enrolled.
I'd like to add a few things quickly. First of all, every district is in the same situation that we're in, okay? We're all constricted by the fact that we've got these dramatically increasing STRS, PERS, the EPA going away, and healthcare expenses that continue to go up. Yet, in this year's state budget, the amount of money available for discretionary purposes, i.e. to increase our base payer bills, is 0.47% COLA and 2% growth. So everybody's feeling the same pain, which is why there's discussion in Sacramento right now about shifting some of the money out of the instructional equipment and scheduled maintenance fund, possibly out of CTE, although the governor is going to fight to protect that money, and putting it into increasing the base to try to deal with these ongoing expenses, because it's a runner rate. You know, these are cost drivers that no district can deal with. And most of the CBOs that I know and people that I've talked to have said that if this continues, everybody's reserves are going to disappear in 2 or 3 years, and it's going to be a massive problem. So there's a sense that something is going to have to happen to relieve that. Secondly, we should all be very proud of the fact that over the last 2 or 3 years, we've done an incredible job with our enrollment management, and we've gotten much more efficient in terms of the number of students served. The FTS generated on a lower cost basis. This is because of great enrollment management. This is because our faculty has voluntarily taken more students into the classes. This is because the place feels better, the climate's better. We give credit to Dr. Birdie and certainly a lot of other people for that. So we should feel good about that, okay? And celebrate that, because the news that Joe provided is just where we are right now. And the third and final thing is that it is where we are right now as of March 24th. A lot of things are going to change between March 24th and the first week in May with the May revise. And the numbers are going to reflect something different. And probably it's going to be a better picture. There's even this thing called the D word on the 2%, the deficit factor. The deficit factor on our P1 talks about a 2% deficit factor. Well, because on average the state is growing at 1.17%, and they put 3% away for growth, there's still 2%, give or take, left on the table that can help with that so-called deficit factor. And the deficit factor now is plugged at 2% of whatever the state promised every district. So in our case, that's roughly $2 million. Okay, so if that deficit factor comes down to 0, which is what a lot of people think it will, or something below 2%, that's additional money that'll come to the bottom line. So that will improve our situation. That could be as much as $2 million better to our bottom line, okay? We don't know that for a fact, but it's out there. The final important factor is recently Business Services sent out the end of the year purchasing document that basically said, everybody do your spending, do it now. Because every penny that we can roll over to next year is a penny that helps with the deficit for next year, with the negative for next year. So we all need to continue to do that in order to do, so that we don't have to get involved, and of course I will not be here, but we do not have to get involved in any kind of draconian decisions which will hurt students. So we want to try to avoid that as much as possible. And finally, I spent from 3 o'clock yesterday to 9 o'clock last night at the LA Community College District. Am I standing in front of the camera? Oh, sorry. And let me tell you, we are light years ahead of where they are in terms of enrollment management, in terms of all of these things. They've got plenty of money, so the union, by the way, is salivating, I might say, at the meetings I was at yesterday. And, sorry. See how I say inappropriate things? I will go out of here saying inappropriate things on camera. But the point is that you all should feel very, very good about where we are as a college from an enrollment management point of view, from a college services point of view, from a student services point of view. This is really a very, very, very good college. And we just have to stick together to kind of keep it that way. So I just wanted to add to that. This is the truth, but there are different variations in the truth that will play out in the next 90 days.
Well, let us thank Dr. Miller for all the good work he has done to bring us where we are today. Just as he was just telling us that we are light years ahead, and we would not be light years ahead today without the work of Dr. Bob Miller. Right? We thank you again for that, Bob, and from time to time we hope that we can put you on Skype to hear good news like that. Yes, sir. Dr. Foster.
I'm just, on page number 5, you mentioned the second part where it says fiscal year use of one-time funds for ongoing expenditures.
Yes.
You mentioned there was a gap that needed to be filled, which I need some clarification on.
Sure.
Like the way you said it, it kind of seems like $2,800,000 were sort of unforeseen in last year's cycle, and then you had to fix it this year. Is that?
For this year's budget, we had a gap between the revenue coming in of ongoing revenue and the expenses going out in the amount of $2.8 million. For this fiscal year, we received $12 million of mandated one-time funds.
Right.
So one-time funds, $2.8 million, was used for the ongoing expense. So this year we're fine, but this becomes a problem for next fiscal year. So we have to budget for it with ongoing dollars in next fiscal year's budget.
Okay.
So we knew it was coming. We didn't know how to close the gap without really taking and making cuts to everybody's budget that were severe. So we made a decision to move forward with using the one-time dollars for 1 year. Does that help? Okay, good.
All right.
And, just for all the colleges are in the same boat, I get that. But how are colleges supposed to fund their integrated planning if the instructional equipment money goes into the general fund? I mean, all the colleges, I would think, would then have a very hard time supporting their integrated planning process.
Well, we still have the money left.
Yeah, remember also that
well, there'd be some money, but
yeah, that's where you're planning.
Well,
and a big chunk of the CTE money is designed for equipment, to buy equipment that is very expensive to replace and or to buy in the first place.
True.
So that'll be one fund. But the instructional equipment thing, I think everybody will remember that up until 3 years ago, we hadn't got instructional equipment in how many years?
We had not.
So there really has been a lot of unmet need has already been fulfilled in many respects. But it is going to be a problem because at the end of the day, those cost drivers, STIRS, PERS, and what have you, we can't avoid those. And then at the same time, eventually people are going to want raises again, we've got to find money for raises as well.
Because I would imagine it would affect the refresh. It could potentially affect the refresh.
Right, and the refresh is a debatable topic. I always I have different opinions on it.
Dr. Oliver.
Joe and Bob, thank you very much for explaining this in a simple way. What concerns me is it says that our best case scenario is if the CTE money is flexible.
Mhm.
But on the little asterisks, it says to replace old programs with newly created programs, and that's gonna take a lot of the stakeholders at this table, that's gonna take our work to make sure that we update existing programs. Cause if, you know, triple SP and equity have got a lot of strings attached. We have to meet certain goals, data outcomes. It's very heavily regulated. So if we're looking at that to help us dig us out of a deficit hole, we need to be paying attention to that at this table so that we can go back and work with our faculty to make sure they're updating programs to the new requirements.
Yeah, and the other thing about, and this is Cynthia's favorite S word, supplant.
Right.
You have to be careful that you don't use these monies that are designated for very specific things and use it to supplant expenses the district is already incurring, or else the auditors are gonna come down and make issues. Joe reminded me of something I forgot about. Fund 41, which is our capital outlay fund, is funded separately from Fund 01, and right now we have about $7.5 million, $7.5 million in that fund. And every year we try to put.
So we have $7 million in the fund, but $3 million is committed, so
Right.
it's really 4.
Right, but that's true, but I don't expect that all $7 million will be spent, because it usually isn't. The point is that there is monies other than the general fund to pay for equipment and other things.
Dr. Kiodas? No. Anybody else? We thank you very much, Joe. Bob, thank you very much. I hope that this was very informative and that we will carry this message to your constituent groups. And Ms. Fleming, you're laughing.
I'm not, I was just
You
smiling.
don't like those numbers, I guess.
I won't, never mind. It's
Oh,
okay.
okay,
It's a
all
can
right.
of worms, we'll have to.
Okay, all
Do you have
right.
this electronically?
Yes, and it's also on the BRAC website.
It is
I
on the
can
BRAC
send you
website?
the link.
Keep that
Anybody
kind of
want an
one
extra
sealed,
copy?
all right.
My copy?
I would take that.
Keep
Julie,
that kind of
Julie,
one
do you want it?
sealed.
Yeah, I will.
I'll find it on the
Later.
website,
Later.
thank you.
Another day.
Yes.
Okay, very good. We don't have any old items. That's kind of strange. I thought we had items. I guess we must have taken care of all of them. We must do very well as a committee. We don't have old items. We have new items though, for discussion and possible action. BP and AP 4051 college credit for articulated high school courses. This is for information only. Ms. Colrose, would you like to walk us through that?
This BP and AP has been through the academic senate, they've made their revisions, it's been approved by the senate, it's at this, it is the purview of the academic senate. So it's just here for information only. Before we forward it on to the board.
Yes, Jim?
I have a question. If these are articulated courses, why do then they have to do the credit by exam?
Let's hear from instruction. If they are articulated courses, why do students have to take the credit by exam to get credit?
I don't totally understand the question.
Well, we have a credit by exam policy that applies broadly, not just to articulated high school courses. So why do we have to have a separate thing, or that's one, is why do we have to have a separate thing for this when we already have credit by exam anyway? And second is, if it's an articulated course and the faculties at both levels have approved it, deemed it comparable, why do they have to do a credit by exam? Why can't the articulation just be honored?
You know, Lionel Wiggins is the faculty member who worked on this, and he probably would know the answer to your question, so if we could just take the question and then get back to Jim? Would that
Well,
be okay?
the Senate should take that question and ask
I mean-
Councilor Wiggins of that.
I can certainly do that. I thought that the conversation was that it's quality control would be my best guess. These are students who are taking classes in high school and the teachers who are teaching them. I mean, we're not micromanaging those teachers in any way, although there are some criteria that they need to meet in order to get college credit. I think the credit by exam is just a safety measure to make
Well,
sure
the-
that they're getting the same level
The
of.
purpose of an articulation is to eliminate the credit by exam. That's why we have an articulation agreement, to remove the credit by exam, which means that, as Jim mentioned earlier on, that the two parties, that is the faculty at PCC and the faculty at PUSD, have reviewed the courses and have agreed that we will have an articulation. That is, if they complete that course, therefore they qualify for this course here and they get the credit. And that should automatically remove the credit by exam.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to have an articulation if you have credit by exam.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll definitely
All right.
ask
For the
them.
past 4 years, Lionel has been the person who has organized our articulation day. And high school teachers, 40 or 50 of them visit and meet with our faculty and they review their courses. And so the credit by exam is a new component. I'm not sure why, if Lionel is hearing from the state that other people are doing it, but it is a valid question I'm
Right.
curious about.
And always bear in mind that if there is an articulation agreement, the purpose of such is to remove credit by exam.
Right now, we've used it to initially waive if that course is a prerequisite for when
Then
they
you
want to
waive the
enter a little
prerequisite in
more
that case,
advanced.
yes.
So we've used it for that purpose, but then the student finishes the certificate, they don't have that class
Right.
on their transcript.
Well, I thank the Senate for taking this forward and asking
Thank you.
Councilor Wiggins about
Yeah, I'll ask. I just
discovered
don't
the
know, I
purpose of
don't
that.
ever deal with this in my rounds.
Other questions? Since this is only for information, we are not going to be moving this forward right now, so we have time. Any other questions, feedback, comments, suggestions about BP 4051? Okay. Shall we move on to BP 3810, claims and actions against the district? This is for first read, and you want to walk us with that through it, Ms. Colros?
Sure.
All right.
I was requested to have this brought forward. We had this actual policy written by an attorney. It is something that we should have on the books. There's going to be no administrative procedure with this, it's strictly a board policy. Pretty self-explanatory. Gives you each section, times for filing claims, late claims, the district's response to claims, where things have to be filed.
This is as much a risk management policy as anything else for the district. Most districts already have these types of policies in place, and it just places the district in a better position should any litigation be brought against it for almost any particular reason. And we consulted with 2 firms on this just to make certain that this is something that we needed, and both firms said the same thing. This particular one came from Warren Kinsler with Atkins Lawyer, and it's a housekeeping thing. It's a big housekeeping thing, but it's mostly a housekeeping thing.
The various representatives on this committee will take that to their group, review it, and come back to us at the next meeting, or the meeting after that, depending if you have enough time to review. But I think that quicker, the faster we get this taken care of, the better it is, because we don't have anything in our books right now, and
That's correct.
it is a problem for us to explain to people that, oh, we've denied your claim, but yet we don't even have a process for them to know, right?
That's exactly right. So it's one of those things where we don't need it right now, but anything can happen. A slip and fall could happen tomorrow, we're gonna need it, so.
Right.
We did that.
So are we approving this?
No, we're not approving it,
Just-
you will take it.
No, but in Senate, so are you asking for
Yeah,
approval
yeah,
or
if-
is it just an information item?
Information item, this is right, Chris? Or is it,
How would you like it handled?
this is not an academic and professional matter, right? So,
I'm asking you.
It is not.
it is not, so then they take it as an information item then. Take it as an information item.
Okay, who's going to present that as an information item?
Ms. Colrose will present that.
Okay.
All right.
Just let me know when.
Mhm. We thank you very much for that, classified Senate. You present it also to your group?
Yeah, I'm okay making copies and handing it out to
All right,
the.
okay, all right. And, all right, okay, very good. Announcements. Well, I have a major announcement to make.
Yeah,
We have a big party this afternoon. Yes.
Can I use this time to ask a question?
Yes, of course, go ahead.
Okay, so something that's been kind of floating around through my constituents, I mean CCLC, ASAC, SSCCC. I'm sure we're all aware that textbook affordability is kind of a big thing. It's, pretty ridiculous that students are still paying $200 plus for math textbooks, which doesn't change at all, really. One thing that's been kind of floating around is the possibility of open textbooks. I was trying to figure out how this college administration felt about it. No one really was able to answer, so I figured I'd ask you guys if there is a discussion about that, or at least having the option to support faculty who would like to take that route. It is something that I think would.
At the request of the student, I'm going to suggest that the College Council ask the Academic Senate to take a look at it.
We're already on it.
You already are there?
Cool.
There we go.
So at the meeting on Monday, we have a agenda item for an OER resolution.
Okay.
Julie Kiotis is working collaboratively with Lenora Rogas and some of the PD standing committee members to apply for a grant that would bring professional development funds to PCC in order to educate faculty about that and implement some initiatives. Correct?
We do have a few students that are few faculty that are using it right now, and we should know that there are schools that actually put it in their college catalog that there is a free textbook associated with this class, and I think it would be a great thing for us, and it would advertise for the students who, you know, if that $100 or $200 is going to make the difference in your success in a classroom, you should know coming in that is a free
Are the
class.
schools that you're referring
Community
to,
colleges.
are they also adopting or hoping to adopt this as a institutional across the boards?
We can't mandate it to the faculty, but we can encourage the faculty and teach the faculty how it's done and where the resources are.
Stephanie?
The statewide senate has an initiative too, and so they've created a database or a clearinghouse where they have quality control of certain textbooks, and so for different fields they have recommendations. They have discipline-specific faculty who have approved these and reviewed these textbooks.
Top 50 classes have free textbooks.
Yeah. So
However, back to what we started the technology talk on. This is an equity issue, but if we don't provide the free internet, our students who really have an equity issue cannot afford $50 or $100 internet at home every month.
I think I have three comments that I'd like to make. One is that one that just brought up right now is maybe we need to have, at the college level, conduct a survey to find out what is the percentage of our students that don't have access to the internet. Because very often we make those statements, but we need to have an idea as to what it is. So I'm going to ask whoever's responsible for surveying our population to. All right,
I'd just like to say something. I'm more than happy to conduct that survey, but everybody needs to understand that has to happen in the classroom.
We will work with that.
That means that faculty have to cooperate with an in-classroom survey.
All right, so we will have the Senate and the Faculty Association work with the faculty so that we can get that information. This is very important information, right?
I think it would be also important to poll the faculty and just ask about their feelings in talking to them. There's a lot of misconceptions about OER. I've heard that the quality isn't up to par, and I've heard that Ed Code says that we have to use a textbook that's up to date, and I've heard some really strange things, and so it might be nice just to preempt the conversation by polling people to think about what are the major issues.
That conversation is happening right now. I think you just mentioned that the statewide academic senate is working on that, and the next step is they will be liaising with the Senate of the CSU system as to what you just said right now, because currently the articulation stipulates that we need to have listed in our course outline of record a textbook that is less than 5 years old. That's what the articulation agreement states right now. Otherwise, your course will not be recognized by the CSU system. One of the main purposes of that task force at the statewide level is for the two senates to review that so that that can be addressed. The second thing that I was going to bring forward is to ask Crystal to bring to us here our board policy on textbook adoption. Because we have a board policy on textbook adoption. If we don't, we should have one because there's a requirement for that. There should be a board policy. We don't. But we need to have one. I mean, that's a given that we need to have one. All colleges need to have a textbook. You can stare at me all you want, but that is something that something that we are required to have.
It's called academic freedom.
Oh, believe me, there is academic freedom. That's what that board policy does. It states it. It reinforces it. There is a board policy. All colleges are supposed to have a board policy on textbook adoption. And then based on that policy, there is or there is not an AP that is created. Okay? Currently, I think statewide, we may perhaps be one of 2 or 3 colleges that do not have a board policy on textbook adoption.
We have one on academic freedom.
Okay, all right, so we are 1 or 2 or 1 of 3. Okay, and it is important that we have that. And then when it comes to the AP that's associated with that board policy, it's about, I think, 65 to 70% of schools have AP associated with their board policy. About 30% don't have. They just rely on the board policy. But there must be one on that because the academic freedom, yes, and so on, but there is a policy associated with that. And if you check with CCLC, there is a policy.
I'll send the template to the Senate.
Thank you.
Well,
Yes, go ahead.
Just to respond to that second point you made, that's a big flap at Cal State Fullerton over this right now in the music department.
But the faculty member almost lost his job.
Yes.
The
Because
faculty
he-
member, a tenured
yeah.
faculty member almost lost his job on that. There is a board policy, they have a board policy
What
on that.
happened?
At Cal State Fullerton.
And what
They have
It was in math.
department chair has dictated a text, and this one
Because
faculty
the
member.
board policy allows for it.
And it's very expensive, and the department chair had written it, I think. I'm not sure, I'm.
No, he didn't write that book, no, he did not write that book.
Well,
Well, it was
someone-
written by a faculty member.
Someone
Yes,
had.
it was, yeah.
And the one faculty balked at the price of it and the
Right.
text and wanted to use
Yeah.
something different
Right.
and they tried to fire him.
The third thing,
Tried. Tried.
Oh, he was almost
Well-
gone.
Well, it was a court case, I think.
Oh, yeah. Then the third thing that I was going to make, the third point, is that I have a daughter who goes to Cal State Fullerton. She's a full-time student there. She does not have to buy any textbook. All the textbooks are open source textbooks. And she's not in the cheap major. She's a computer engineering major.
Wow.
The 4-year bachelor's, master's degree in computer engineering, she's in that program. Advanced physics, advanced math, advanced computer engineering, poli-sci, second poli-sci that we're not supposed to offer, whatever which one it is, every single one of them. Open source. There was one class, one physics class, where there was a textbook listed, but the instructor told all their students, you don't have to buy that textbook if you can find online sections that address the topics that we would cover in class. Well, I'm just sharing with you. I mean, if the schools where our students are transferring, and this is not only Cal State Fullerton, Cal State Delhi is more or less the same thing. CSUN, same thing, right? If our students are transferring to 4-year colleges and universities that are not requiring students to purchase textbooks and have a policy, maybe they don't have a policy, but where students have the opportunity to use open source textbooks, I think we can do something about it. And I am very happy to see that the Senate is looking at that. And I would ask the Faculty Association also to look at that. And I don't think that it is an infringement on academic freedom. A Shakespeare textbook, whether you get it for free or whether you purchase it, is a Shakespeare textbook. In psychology, if you're looking at Freud or, I don't know, Maslow or Piaget, where you're looking, their theories, whether you get them for free or whether you read them in a $250 textbook, are the same, right? So I hope that we can reach some agreement on that. to help our students. Because when you look at the cost of attending college, the cost of attending college for a community college student is higher in California than the cost of attending college for a CSU student or a UC student. And if you were to read today the Community College Times, there is an article by our very own trustee Hoyt Hilsman on that very specific topic. Okay, so
So you
that's
got a
all.
pretty full answer to that question.
I got a great answer to that question.
You satisfied with that answer?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Do you see the college moving in a direction to help students?
I do.
Thank you. All right. Other questions or announcement? No one has any announcement? Go around the table for announcements. Everybody seems happy. No announcement. Very good. Miss Monica Molina, you represent confidentials. No announcement from the confidentials? No?
Nothing.
No?
No?
Okay. Classified sense?
No, thank you.
Okay, all right. Well, what do we do now? Adjournment? Next meeting is on Thursday, April 28th. Do they have a college council over there where you're going?
District, they have more councils than Carter's got filled with them, so I'm trying to figure it out. There's a lot of them.